Hello and welcome to Sodor Fallout Episode 2, Narrow Gauge Engines. Before we get started, in the original Sodor Fallout, we already seen what happened to Skarloey, but we didn't know what happened to Rheneas, Sahandel, Peter Sam, Rusty, Duncan, and Duke. So enjoy. High up in the Sodor Hills, on the narrow gauge railway, the narrow gauge engines were busy. Rheneas was pulling the passenger train. Isn't it a great day, driver? But unfortunately, Rheneas was wrong. Cinders and ashes, cried Rheneas. What was that? It's the power plant, said his driver. Run, Rheneas, run! And Rheneas ran as fast as his wheels could carry him. He raced past Skarloey, who was going in the opposite direction. And at long last, Rheneas had arrived at the station. He was cross and worried. I just knew this power plant was a bad idea, he shouted. What was the Topping Hat thinking? I just hope Skarloey makes it. But unfortunately, Rheneas was wrong. Skarloey didn't have any luck at all. What's wrong, Skarloey? Said Skarloey's driver. Oh, I don't feel well, said Skarloey. But suddenly, Skarloey began to feel all crooked. His driver examined him carefully, and then he gasped. Skarloey, what's happened to your face? Yeah, I'm becoming a mutant, said Skarloey. I must get these passengers to the station. Quick. And soon Skarloey arrived at the station. But suddenly his mutations got worse, and he went off to find other engines to mutate. Meanwhile, Sahandel survived the blast. He stopped at the station where Rheneas was. You know something, driver? What is it, Sahandel? said his driver. I just knew this power plant was a bad idea. And Duke keeps calling me Falcon. I'm not Falcon anymore. I'm Sahandel, for Pete's sake. Then he heard a whistle. And Sahandel gasped in horror at what happened to Skarloey. Skarloey, what's happened to you? Cried Sahandel. Sahandel tried to get away, but he suddenly derailed, and the mutant Skarloey caught up, and Sahandel was mutated. Meanwhile, in the mid-Sodor railway, Smudger got mutated as well. Meanwhile, the next day, Rusty got mutated, and so did Peter Sam. After episode 1, Rheneas was still looking for survivors, but when he arrived at the station, there was Duncan alive and well. Rheneas, said Duncan, am I glad to see you? Am I glad to see you too, Duncan, said Rheneas. So did any of the engines survive? Well, unfortunately, no, said Duncan. Proteus and Bertram, they were on another part of the narrow gauge railway, looking for survivors. But I saw mutants, Rusty, Peter Sam, Sahandel, they've been mutated. But unfortunately, Rheneas, Skarloey got mutated. Rheneas burst into tears. Skarloey's been mutated. I should have been there for him. He's my brother. There, don't cry, said Duncan. I got a surprise for you. Really? What is it? Hour later, Duncan took Rheneas to the sheds, and Rheneas saw who was this surprise. Duke! Rheneas! Duncan, you found him, said Duke. I'm glad to see you, Duke, said Rheneas. What happened? Well, I just heard about the nuclear power plant on Sodor. That's Top and Hat built. I just knew it was a bad idea. That will never suit his grace. Duncan was in the shed with me because he was locked up in the shed for being naughty. When the blast happened, I was resting until the blast woke me up. It frightened both of us. We told our drivers to lock the doors of the shed until it was safe. But then a mutant Skarloey came and tried to bang the doors down, but he suddenly gave up and walked away. And he chuffed away. And we came out, and I sent Duncan out to look for survivors, and we found you. But we just need to save our railway. You're right, Duke, said Rheneas. We need to think of a cure, and fast. Perhaps I can be a bit of help, said Edward. Lady visits our railway, and she give us plenty of gold dust to cure all the steamies. And I suppose I have some gold dust left for you to cure all the narrow gauge engines. So gold dust is secure, said Rheneas. Thanks, Edward. Now we can turn our narrow gauge trains back to normal. All right, said Duke. This is our chance to save the narrow gauge railway. Soon Rheneas found Skarloey and got him back to normal. And Duncan found Rusty and got him back to normal. Duke had found Sir Handel and got him back to normal. Duncan found Peter Sam and got him back to normal. Meanwhile he was throwing gold dust at Peter Sam. Some of the gold dust flew up into the air and landed right on top of Smudger, and Smudger was cured too. Meanwhile, the narrow gauge engines all gathered. Oh, I'm glad it's over now, said Sir Handel. Yeah, it was horrible being mutated, said Skarloey. Yeah, but what about the non-railed vehicles like Bertie and Cranky and Harold? Yeah, I just hope they're having better luck than us, said Rusty. That will continue on another episode of what will happen to the non-rail vehicles. The end.